AITA for refusing to let my sister dictate how I parent my child, even though she claims she's helping. I, 34F, have always had a very hands-on approach to parenting, which works for me and my husband, 36M. We have a 3-year-old daughter, Emma, who's energetic, smart, and honestly a little stubborn, much like her parents. I love being involved in her life, from deciding her meals to choosing her activities. I'm also the type of parent who believes in a mix of structure and freedom, bedtime routines, limits on screen time, but also letting her explore and make some choices on her own. My sister, Jen, 38F, has always been more traditional in her views. She has 2 kids, ages 8 and 10, and she's very regimented with schedules, rules, and discipline. I get that she has a system that worked for her family, but she often assumes that her way is the only way. Over the years, this has created minor tension, but it was manageable because we didn't see each other that often. The conflict started when Emma was about 2. Jen came over to babysit for a couple of hours while my husband and I went out. When we returned, she immediately started critiquing everything. She said Emma's nap schedule was all over the place, that she shouldn't have yogurt before bed, that letting her play outside unsupervised, even just in the fenced yard, was reckless, and that we were setting her up for failure by not forcing her to eat vegetables she didn't like. I tried to laugh it off, saying she's our child and we have our own system. Jen didn't back down. She seemed genuinely offended that we weren't following the rules. I thought it was a one-time thing, but Jen kept escalating. Every time she was around Emma, she would give unsolicited advice on feeding, screen time, nap schedules, and discipline. She even tried to show us YouTube videos about proper toddler routines and texted me articles about parenting methods she thought we should follow. I tried to set boundaries politely, saying, "Thanks for the tips, but we have a system that works for us." She would smile and nod, but then continue anyway. The breaking point came a few months ago. We invited Jen over for dinner. Emma was tired, so I told her she could skip dessert if she wanted. Jen loudly scolded me, saying, "You can't just let her get her way all the time. That's how kids become spoiled." I calmly told her Emma is fine, and we handle her behavior, but she kept arguing. My husband eventually had to step in to diffuse the situation. After that night, I decided to be more firm. I told Jen that she could visit and spend time with Emma, but she could not interfere with our parenting or criticize us in front of her daughter. I explained that it's stressful and confusing for Emma when she gets conflicting instructions. Jen seemed to accept it, but the next weekend, she sent a message suggesting that we reconsider our approach and linking a blog post titled, "How to Raise a Well-Behaved Child Without Letting Them Rule the House." I didn't respond. The situation escalated further last week. Jen showed up unannounced while Emma and I were at home. I was a little annoyed, but let her in because I didn't want to start a fight. She immediately started criticizing Emma's lunch, a peanut butter and banana sandwich, saying it was unhealthy. Then she told me I should be enforcing more screen time limits because 3-year-olds need absolute rules, not choices. I snapped. I told her she could leave if she couldn't respect our parenting decisions. She got angry, accused me of being a bad sister and overreacting, and left without saying goodbye. The problem is my parents got involved. They called me, saying Jen is just trying to help and that I'm too sensitive. My husband thinks I handled it correctly, but now my parents are subtly criticizing me for being too rigid with Jen. I've explained multiple times that Emma is fine, that we love her and set boundaries for her, and that our approach works for us, but it seems like nothing is convincing them. I feel like I'm constantly walking on eggshells with my family because Jen always criticizes our parenting and my parents' side with her under the guise of helping. I want a relationship with my sister, but I don't want to compromise how I raise my child or make Emma feel like she's being constantly corrected or judged. So AITA for refusing to let my sister dictate how I parent my daughter, even though she says she's helping and my parents think I'm overreacting. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. I, 25F, have a younger sister, Emily, 22F, who has always been kind of impulsive but generally sweet. Growing up, we were very close, though as adults, our lives have diverged a lot. I'm fairly responsible and career-focused, while she has a more carefree approach to life. Our parents have always encouraged us to be close, so I try to keep that bond even as things get complicated. About a year ago, Emily started dating a guy named Ryan, 28M. At first, he seemed charming enough. He's outgoing, funny, and seems to have a lot of friends. But very quickly, I started noticing red flags. He can be controlling, and I noticed that he tends to make snide comments about Emily in front of other people, often disguised as jokes. For instance, when Emily talks about her plans, Ryan often interrupts with, "Are you sure you can handle that?" Or, "You probably shouldn't do that. Leave it to someone smarter." Emily laughs along, but it makes me uncomfortable because I can tell it bothers her. The bigger issue is how he treats other people, too. On a few occasions when we went out as a group, Ryan has been openly dismissive or rude to servers, friends, and even my parents. It's subtle enough that Emily brushes it off, saying, "He's just joking, don't be so serious." But over time, I realized it wasn't joking. He genuinely enjoys asserting dominance in social situations, and it often comes across as mean-spirited. A few months ago, Emily told me they were engaged. I tried to hide my immediate reaction, which was concern, but I honestly told her privately that I wasn't comfortable with Ryan and had serious reservations. Emily was defensive at first, but eventually she said, "I know you're worried, but I love him. He's not perfect, but we're happy. I need you to respect that." I agreed to try because I don't want to sabotage her happiness. Then came the wedding planning. Emily asked me to be a bridesmaid, which I initially accepted. As part of the preparations, I spent time helping her pick dresses, plan decorations, and attend dress fittings. During this time, Ryan's behavior started to escalate. He became increasingly controlling over minor things. Her choice of flowers, her dress style, even what color the bridesmaid's shoes should be. He would openly criticize my suggestions during planning, often in front of Emily, and she seemed torn between standing up for herself and appeasing him. The breaking point came about a month before the wedding. Emily asked me to help with seating arrangements. I noticed that Ryan was trying to exclude certain family members and friends who had gently criticized him in the past. When I pointed out that this could hurt people, he snapped at me, saying, "You're overreacting. If Emily wants these people there, she'll handle it." Later that day, Emily came to me crying because he yelled at her over something trivial, how to word the invitations. She felt trapped between him and me. I realized that attending the wedding would feel like endorsing a relationship that is, frankly, toxic. I tried to talk to Emily again, gently explaining that I wasn't comfortable being part of it if Ryan continued treating her poorly and others disrespectfully. She said she understood, but also expressed disappointment, saying, "I really need my sister there. It's my wedding. I can't believe you're making this about Ryan instead of me." After thinking about it for several days, I decided to decline being a bridesmaid. I told her I couldn't in good conscience participate in a wedding where I felt someone was being openly abusive, even subtly. I offered to celebrate with her separately, like having a dinner or a weekend together, but I could not attend the ceremony. Now, the fallout has been intense. My parents are upset with me, saying I should support my sister no matter what, and Emily is hurt. She hasn't spoken to me much, though she posts pictures from her planning and mentions the wedding on social media. Ryan hasn't said anything to me directly, but Emily tells me he's annoyed that I'm causing drama. My friends are divided. Some say I'm right to protect myself and set boundaries. Others think I'm overreacting and that I should let her be happy. Honestly, I feel conflicted. On one hand, I love my sister and I don't want to alienate her during such a big moment. On the other hand, I can't ignore the way Ryan behaves and how it impacts her and everyone around him. I also know that if I attend, I'll be stressed, uncomfortable, and likely end up in arguments with Ryan or defensive about his behavior, which could spoil Emily's day in a different way. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. AITA for refusing to pay for my brother's wedding after he excluded me from the planning. I, 28F, have always been close with my younger brother, James, 26M. Growing up, we shared everything from bunk beds to secrets, and we even went through some rough patches together. But as adults, our relationship has become increasingly complicated. James has been engaged to his fiancée, Claire, 27F, for about a year now. From the start, I wanted to be involved in the wedding planning, as I have always loved organizing events and helping people I care about. I thought this could be a great way for us to reconnect and make something really special together. The problem started shortly after they got engaged. James and Claire started planning the wedding, and without asking me, they made all the big decisions on the venue, guest list, and theme. When I asked if I could help with anything, James said, "We've got it covered. You don't need to worry about anything." I felt hurt, but tried to brush it off, thinking maybe they just wanted to handle things themselves. Then, about 3 months ago, I found out that they had asked several friends and family members to contribute financially to the wedding, including me. The thing is, they didn't approach me directly. They assumed I would pay because I'm successful and don't have student loans like everyone else. I felt blindsided and frankly a little insulted. I've never been in a position where I was just expected to fund someone's big life event, especially when they actively excluded me from planning it. I decided to politely decline. I said, "I'm happy to celebrate with you, but I don't feel comfortable contributing financially if I'm not involved in any planning. I want to be part of it in a meaningful way, not just a source of funds." James immediately got defensive. He said I was being unreasonable, that weddings are expensive, and that it's customary for family members to chip in if they can. I explained that it's not about the money. It's about being treated like an afterthought in my own brother's wedding. I also reminded him that in the past, he has always been included in everything I did, and it hurt that the roles were reversed. Claire chimed in, saying I was making a big deal out of nothing, and that weddings are stressful, and this was just how things were done. Since then, the atmosphere between us has been tense. They have continued planning without me, and now they're a few weeks away from the wedding. My parents are also involved in this drama. They think I should just pay and move on, saying it's a family celebration and I'm overthinking things. My dad told me I'm putting my pride over family, and my mom hinted that I'm jealous of Claire for taking my role in James' life. I've stayed firm and haven't contributed financially, and now James has started giving me the silent treatment. I was invited to the bachelorette party, but was told it's just a girls' thing and that he didn't want me there. He also mentioned in passing that he's disappointed in me, which I get, but I don't feel guilty for wanting respect and inclusion. Here's the kicker. A week ago, I learned through social media that another family member contributed a significant amount, and they are now publicly thanking them in posts about the wedding. I feel like this is rubbing salt in the wound, and it made me even more resentful. I reached out to James one last time and asked if we could have a heart-to-heart, but he ignored my message. I've been told by friends that I'm being too rigid and should just let it go, but I can't shake the feeling that being asked to pay while being excluded is unfair. At the same time, I feel guilty because I do want to support my brother and celebrate his wedding, but I'm also hurt and I don't know if I can put my feelings aside. Now I'm stuck. I want to go to the wedding because I love my brother, but I also don't want to pretend everything is fine. My parents are still pressuring me to contribute, and James seems to expect me to just forgive and move on without ever addressing why I felt hurt. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to pay for my brother's wedding after being excluded from planning and feeling like an afterthought. Character count, 6, 750 if you want. I can also draft a second version that's even more dramatic and conflict-heavy, like the post that went viral with family fights escalating over minor misunderstandings. It could push closer to the 7,000 character limit. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to help my sister with her wedding after she insulted my partner in front of our family. So, a bit of background. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F. We've always had a bit of a competitive relationship, but I wouldn't call it toxic, mostly just playful teasing, though she can be insensitive at times. I've been with my partner, Mark, 30M, for 4 years. Mark is genuinely amazing, supportive, kind, and he gets along with most of my family, including Emily, at least in theory. Emily got engaged about 6 months ago and immediately started talking about her dream wedding, which, as anyone who's planned a wedding knows, quickly becomes stressful for everyone involved. From the beginning, she wanted a family-inclusive wedding, which I interpreted as expecting us to help with some of the planning and prep work. My mom has always done the bulk of planning for family events, but Emily insisted she wanted my input, so I offered to help with some of the decorations and invitations. Everything was fine for the first month. We were emailing ideas back and forth, going to small craft stores together, and planning menus. Then things started getting weird. She began nitpicking little things I suggested, like table arrangements or color schemes, claiming that this is my day, not yours, which okay, fair enough. But it escalated one afternoon when we were at her fiancé's parents' house, going through floral arrangements. I mentioned that I thought roses might be too traditional and suggested lilies or peonies instead. Emily completely snapped. She said something along the lines of, "Wow, I can't believe you'd actually try to ruin my wedding with your boring ideas." And honestly, Mark is probably the only one who would like this because he has terrible taste, so I guess I shouldn't expect anything better from you either. At that point, I was stunned. She had never said anything remotely disrespectful about Mark in front of anyone, and here she was insulting him to his face. Mark tried to brush it off, but you could see he was hurt. I, on the other hand, told her that if she was going to talk about my partner like that, I wouldn't be helping her with wedding planning anymore. She scoffed, said I was overreacting, and stormed off. I honestly thought that would be the end of it. I figured she would apologize after cooling off, but instead, she started texting our family, including my parents, complaining that I was being dramatic and selfish, and that I was refusing to help her because I was jealous of her wedding. My parents tried to mediate, asking me to at least pick up a few small things so she wouldn't be completely stranded. I told them I would come to the wedding itself, but I wouldn't be helping with planning or preparations after the way she treated Mark and me. The tension has gotten worse. She has been making passive-aggressive comments in family group chats, sending pictures of wedding planning progress with captions like, "Guess who's not helping me?" And "It's okay, I'll do it all myself." A few of our cousins have even messaged me privately, saying she's being unfair and that I were justified in feeling hurt, but a couple of others think I should just get over it for a big day. The situation came to a head yesterday when my mom asked me to help assemble wedding favors for an event next weekend. I said no and explained again that I wouldn't be doing any planning or prep work. Emily overheard and started yelling at me in front of my parents, calling me selfish, dramatic, and immature, and saying that I was ruining her wedding experience for everyone. Mark was with me at the time and just looked completely done with the whole situation. I honestly feel like I'm in the right. My sister insulted my partner publicly, and she hasn't apologized. I do not feel comfortable being around her when she acts like that. At the same time, I know weddings are supposed to be about family, and I feel guilty that I'm refusing to help because I don't want her to hate me or ruin the event. My parents are stressed because they don't want drama at the wedding, and I've started getting messages from extended family asking me to just help a little for the sake of Emily. Mark has been supportive of me the whole time. He says I should stand my ground, and honestly, I agree with him, but part of me feels like I might be making the situation worse by refusing to help at all. I want to go to her wedding, I want it to be enjoyable for everyone, but I just don't see how I can participate in the planning or prep after what she said about Mark. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to help my sister with her wedding after she insulted my partner in front of the family. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she asked me to do something I'm uncomfortable with. I, 25F, have always been close with my older sister, Emma, 28F. Growing up, we were inseparable, even if we had the usual sibling spats here and there. We live in different states now because of work, but we still talk almost every day. Emma got engaged about a year ago to her fiancé, Ryan, 30M. From the beginning, she was really involved with the wedding planning, as most brides are, but she also started to ask me for input and help in ways that made me increasingly uncomfortable. The wedding is in about 3 months, and a few weeks ago, Emma sent me a text asking if I could come up with and perform a special reading at the ceremony. I assumed this was like reading a poem or something sentimental, so I said sure. Then she sent me a long message with very specific instructions. She wants me to do a performance that involves not only reading, but also wearing a costume she picked out, which she describes as flirty and fun, and interact with the audience during the reading in a very playful, almost provocative way. She even attached photos of similar performances she said her friends had done at their weddings. I froze when I read it. I have never been a performer in front of people, and the idea of dressing in a costume that she described as flirty in front of all of our family and her work colleagues made me feel extremely uncomfortable. I try to explain that I'm not comfortable performing in that way, and that I was happy to do a normal reading or even just say a few words at the ceremony, but she blew up at me. She said I was being selfish, ruining her dream, and humiliating her in front of everyone by refusing. She also mentioned that all of her bridesmaids had agreed to do similar performances, so I'm apparently the only one refusing. I felt trapped. I try to explain that I have anxiety about performing in front of large groups, and that this goes beyond just stage fright. It genuinely makes me panic. I even offered to help in other ways, like organizing the seating, helping with decorations, or giving a normal reading, but she said none of that counts and that I needed to support her like she supports me in life. Over the next few days, she sent me multiple messages, some angry, some pleading. Her fiancé also got involved, saying that this is all in good fun and that I shouldn't take it so seriously. I explained that it's not about taking things seriously. It's about boundaries and personal comfort. I told her that if she insists, I won't be able to attend because I don't want to put myself in a situation that will trigger a panic attack in front of everyone. She responded with a long message saying that I'm choosing myself over family, that I don't care about her happiness, and that our relationship might never recover if I don't do this. I haven't replied since. A part of me wants to go just to avoid a huge family fight, but I also know that if I agree, I'll end up completely panicking and possibly ruining the ceremony for myself and others. My parents are upset with me because they think I should just push through and that it's a wedding and that these things are temporary. My friends are split. Some say I'm justified for setting boundaries, and others say I'm being dramatic and that it's just a silly costume performance. I feel awful because I love my sister, and the last thing I want is to hurt her on her big day. But at the same time, this goes way beyond my comfort level. I also feel like if I give in now, I'll be setting a precedent that I have to do things that make me extremely uncomfortable just to avoid upsetting people, which isn't healthy. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she asked me to perform in a way that makes me extremely uncomfortable. AITA for refusing to let my half-sister's kids stay at my house after she moved back into town. This is going to be a long one, so bear with me. I, 32F, recently ran into a situation with my family that's caused a lot of tension, and I'm honestly not sure if I'm overreacting or not. My half-sister, Laura, 27F, just moved back to her hometown after living abroad for a few years. She's divorced and has 2 kids, Sam, 7M, and Ellie, 5F. For context, Laura and I grew up in very different households despite having the same dad. I've always been more structured and private, while Laura has always been more free-spirited and a little chaotic. Our dad passed away a few years ago, which has made family dynamics a bit complicated, but we generally get along okay. A couple of months ago, Laura reached out to me, saying she needed a place to stay temporarily. Her divorce was finalized just as she moved back, and she said her new apartment wasn't ready, so she asked if she could crash at my place for a week or 2 with her kids. At first, I agreed because I wanted to be supportive and because it genuinely seemed temporary. My house isn't huge, but I do have space for them, and I thought it would be manageable for a short period. Things quickly escalated. First, she didn't clarify that a week or 2 turned into her showing up with all her stuff, including the kids' toys, clothes, and her own belongings, saying she needed at least a month because she was still sorting her apartment. I have a very strict schedule and work from home, and suddenly my house was full of constant noise, toys everywhere, and meals I wasn't prepared to cook. I tried to set some ground rules, quiet hours, tidying up after themselves, limiting mess in shared spaces, but she consistently ignored them. I try to be patient because I understood moving with kids can be stressful, but it got to the point where I was feeling completely overwhelmed. The breaking point came a few weeks in. I work late nights from home occasionally, and I have a fragile sleep schedule because of a medical condition. One night, Laura let the kids run around in my bedroom while I was on a work call. I came out and asked her to keep them out of the room while I was working, and she snapped at me, saying I was acting like their daycare instead of being family. We got into a huge argument. I reminded her that while I love her and the kids, I also have boundaries and a life, and it's unfair to completely disrupt my routines without notice. She got very defensive and accused me of not wanting her kids around, which isn't true. I like them, but I also have limits. After that incident, I told her I couldn't have her and the kids living at my house anymore. She got furious, saying I was kicking her out in the middle of winter with nowhere else to go. I offered to help her find a temporary Airbnb or suggest local friends who could host her, but she said none of those options were feasible and started making passive-aggressive comments about how I never care about anyone but myself. Our extended family also got involved, and some of them think I'm being harsh for not helping my own sister in a time of need. Laura herself has started posting on social media about family being cold and being forced to fend for herself, which has made me even more anxious and frustrated. To give more perspective, I've always been someone who values boundaries and organization. I cook for myself, clean regularly, and need quiet time for work. Having 2 young children essentially living in my house without adhering to my rules has been exhausting. I've tried compromise, including letting them stay weekends only or helping with babysitting, but nothing seems to satisfy her. Meanwhile, my own mental health has been deteriorating because I can't work properly, sleep, or relax in my own home. I also have neighbors who have complained about noise from the kids, which adds to my stress. My friends tell me I'm not the asshole because I have a right to my own space, but my mom and a few. AITA for refusing to let my sister use my wedding dress, even though she begged. I, 26F, recently got married, and it was one of the happiest days of my life. I spent almost a year planning everything, from the venue to the flowers, and of course the dress. I finally found the perfect gown about 6 months before the wedding. It was custom made, and I absolutely loved it. I even had a few private fittings with the designer, and every time I wore it, I felt like myself on my best day. I've always imagined my wedding dress being something incredibly personal and special, so I didn't really think anyone else would want to wear it or that it could be a point of conflict. Enter my sister, Emily, 24F. Emily is my younger sister and has always been the free spirit of the family. She's really outgoing and creative, but also a bit dramatic at times. We've had a good relationship for the most part, but she can be pushy when she wants something. When I was trying on dresses with my mom and Emily, she seemed impressed and kept asking a lot of questions about the process. She said things like, "Oh, that dress is beautiful." I could totally see myself in something like that someday. I laughed it off because it seemed innocent enough at the time. About 2 months after my wedding, Emily called me crying. She told me that she had been invited to her best friend's wedding and didn't have the budget to buy a new dress. Then she dropped the bomb. She wanted to borrow my wedding dress. She said she couldn't think of anything more perfect for this special occasion and that I would make her the happiest sister in the world if I let her. I was immediately shocked. I told her that my wedding dress is extremely personal to me and I don't feel comfortable letting anyone else wear it. She got upset and said I was being selfish, that it was just a dress, and I was letting my emotions ruin the opportunity for her happiness. I tried to explain that it's not just a piece of fabric. It's part of one of the most important days of my life. I told her it wouldn't feel right to see someone else wearing it, even if it's my sister. She got louder and eventually started crying more hysterically, saying that I never do anything for her, that I only care about myself. At that point, I started to feel guilty because I didn't want to upset her so much. I suggested that I could help her look for a similar dress online, or even help her find a custom-made dress that wouldn't break the bank. She said no, that I wasn't listening to her, and that I was ruining everything. After the call, my mom got involved. She called me and said I needed to be a good sister and let Emily have the dress. She said that my sister is just trying to enjoy a special day too, and that I should think about family before my own feelings. My dad said something similar, although he was a bit more neutral, suggesting I at least consider lending it to her for just a few hours and have her take great care of it. I refused. I tried to stay calm, but said firmly that this dress is not a rental, not a prop, and not something I'm comfortable sharing, even with family. My sister hasn't spoken to me properly since the incident, and my parents keep hinting that I've overreacted and should make amends. They even brought up that maybe I should let her have it temporarily just to keep the peace. I honestly feel hurt and frustrated because it's not about being mean or selfish. It's about boundaries and personal attachment. It wasn't like she asked politely and accepted my answer. She pleaded, cried, and guilt-tripped me. Now, I feel like I'm being punished for setting a boundary. I keep thinking that it's my dress and my wedding, and if anyone should have the right to decide how it's used, it should be me. On the other hand, I get that Emily is upset and probably feels left out, and I know my parents value family unity a lot. I've been thinking that maybe I could compromise by lending her another fancy dress I own, but she specifically said she wanted my wedding dress, and that was the problem. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to let my sister borrow my wedding dress? I feel like I'm standing up for something important, but my family is acting like I'm the villain. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé take over my parents' house after their deaths? I, 34M, grew up in a fairly close-knit family. My parents have always been very generous, loving, and supportive, but they were also quite traditional. We were 3 siblings, my older sister Rachel, 36F, my younger brother Matt, 30M, and me. Our family home, where we all grew up, is a 2-story house that my parents bought when I was 5 years old. Over the years, it became a place where everyone gathered for holidays, birthdays, and big life events. It holds a lot of sentimental value for all of us. About 2 years ago, Rachel got engaged to a man named Josh, 38M. At first, I liked Josh. He seemed nice enough and supportive of Rachel. However, I started noticing some behaviors that made me uncomfortable over time. He would often make subtle comments about how the house could be improved or modernized, sometimes implying that my parents were old-fashioned or behind the times. I brushed it off as him trying to be helpful, but the comments kept coming. Recently, my parents had a serious discussion with all of us about their estate. They made it clear that they wanted us 3 siblings to inherit the house equally. They also said they wanted us to keep in the family as long as possible, as it was not just a property, but a repository of memories. This was very important to them. When I told Rachel about our parents' wishes, she agreed that keeping the house in the family made sense. But then she mentioned that Josh had expressed interest in living in the house after our parents passed. At first, I thought it was just a passing comment, but it quickly became clear that he had plans in mind to take over certain parts of the house and make it his own. I decided to speak with Rachel privately. I told her that I understood she and Josh might want their own space in the future, but the house had been ours as children and was meant to remain in the family. I suggested that if they wanted a home for themselves, they should consider buying a place that could be entirely theirs. I also made it clear that I was not okay with Josh moving in or making changes to the family home without unanimous consent from all siblings. Rachel did not take this well. She accused me of being controlling and selfish. She said that Josh was part of her life now and that I should be more accommodating. She reminded me that Josh contributes financially to the household they live in now, and that it's practical for him to eventually have access to our parents' house. I explained that the financial argument didn't apply here. Our parents had specifically said that the house should stay in the family, and I was committed to honoring that. Things escalated when our parents passed unexpectedly last month. While going through their will, we discovered that they had left the house equally to all 3 siblings, just as they said. That should have been straightforward, but Rachel immediately started pressuring me and Matt to allow Josh to live there, arguing that he was now part of the family and that it would make her life easier. Matt sided with me, saying that he agreed the house should remain for siblings only. Rachel, however, became angry and accused us of being cruel to her and Josh. She even threatened that she might sell her portion of the house to Josh if we didn't comply, which could complicate matters legally. I refused to give in. I reminded her that selling her portion to an outsider would violate the spirit of our parents' wishes, even if technically allowed. I also pointed out that none of this was about Josh personally. It was about honoring our parents' intentions and protecting a place filled with family memories. Rachel claimed that I was being inflexible and said our relationship was now strained because I prioritized a building over her happiness. It's been a few weeks since all of this happened, and the house remains in our names. Rachel hasn't spoken to me or Matt much, and she mostly communicates through text now. She frequently posts on social media about how families shouldn't be so rigid and how some people care more about walls than love, which I think is a passive-aggressive dig at me. Meanwhile, Josh has started making veiled comments when he's around me, suggesting that I'm blocking him from a life he deserves. I feel conflicted because I love my sister and want her to be happy, but I also feel strongly about keeping the family home intact. I think Josh overstepped by assuming he had a right to the house without our parents' explicit permission, and I don't want to start allowing outsiders to influence decisions that were meant to remain within the family. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé take over or live in our parents' house after their deaths. I feel like I'm simply protecting family legacy, but Rachel and Josh see it as being cruel and controlling. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA, 28F, recently had a situation with my younger brother, 24M, and our parents that has caused a huge rift in the family, and I'm struggling to figure out if I'm actually in the wrong. A little background. My brother, let's call him Jake, has always been the golden child in our family. He's incredibly charismatic, smart, and outgoing, while I've always been more introverted and cautious. Growing up, our parents would constantly compare us, often in ways that left me feeling inadequate. I eventually learned to tune it out, but the dynamic never really went away. Fast forward to now, my parents are retiring and decided to buy a vacation cabin in the mountains. They invited both Jake and me to help pick it out, which sounded fine at first. Jake immediately started taking charge, suggesting expensive upgrades, luxury furniture, and basically treating it like he was the one paying for it. I voiced my concerns about practicality and cost, but my parents dismissed them, saying, Jake has such a great eye for this stuff, let him handle it. I didn't mind them listening to him, but rubbed me the wrong way that my opinions were essentially ignored. The turning point came last month. My parents announced they wanted to host a big family gathering at the new cabin before the holidays. They asked if we could both help prepare. I offered to handle cooking and some decorations, while Jake volunteered to organize entertainment and coordinate logistics. I was fine with that split until I realized Jake had completely excluded me from the planning group chat he created with our cousins and some of my parents' friends. Whenever I tried to ask questions or suggest things, he would either ignore me or respond with passive-aggressive comments like, "Oh, don't worry, we already decided on that," or "You probably wouldn't understand this part anyway." I finally confronted him privately, telling him that I felt excluded and hurt because it was supposed to be a family effort. He laughed and said, "You always overreact. It's just easier if I do it. You stress everyone out with your perfectionism." That stung because I wasn't trying to micromanage anything. I just wanted to contribute. I tried to talk to my parents about it, but they brushed it off, saying, Jake just has a stronger personality, and sometimes it's easier to let him lead. The day of the gathering, I stuck to cooking and decorations, but I noticed Jake had planned some very expensive activities and had invited people I didn't know, turning what I thought would be a cozy family weekend into a chaotic social event. I made a few small suggestions about budget and space, but he shut them down. At one point, he publicly criticized one of my dishes, saying it was not impressive enough compared to the rest of the spread. Everyone laughed, and I felt humiliated. After the gathering, I finally lost it. I told my parents that I felt completely disrespected and that Jake's behavior was not okay. I also said that I didn't want to be excluded from family decisions moving forward. My parents were upset, saying I was overreacting and that Jake was just being his usual self. Jake, on the other hand, accused me of being jealous and controlling, and said I made a big scene over nothing. Since then, my relationship with both my parents and Jake has been tense. I haven't spoken to him directly, and my parents are visibly frustrated with me. They've started giving him more responsibilities and consulting him for every little thing, seemingly to avoid conflict, which has only made me feel more sidelined. My friends and extended family are split. Some say I should just let Jake take the lead, while others think my feelings of exclusion are valid. I'm struggling because I don't want to be the problem child or cause family drama. But at the same time, I feel like my voice and contributions are constantly being dismissed. I'm trying to figure out if I really am overreacting or if my family is being unfair to me. I want a healthy relationship with my parents and my brother, but I also don't want to keep feeling like a second-class family member. So, AITA for standing up for myself and confronting my brother and parents, even though it caused tension in the family? Or should I have just gone along with everything to keep the peace? AITA for refusing to invite my brother's fiancée to my wedding after what she did at my engagement party? So, a bit of background first. I, 28F, have been dating my partner, Alex, 30M, for about 5 years, and we recently got engaged. We're both really family-oriented, so naturally, I was excited to share the news with everyone in a big way. We decided to throw an engagement party, not too fancy, just something casual with close family and friends, and to make it more fun, I wanted to do a little game where everyone could share funny stories about the couple. It was supposed to be lighthearted and a way for people to reminisce. Everything was going smoothly until my brother, Mark, 31M, and his fiancée, Jenna, 27F, showed up. Mark and I have always had a complicated relationship. We fought a lot growing up, but over the past few years, we've gotten closer. Jenna, on the other hand, I've never really clicked with. She's very loud, very opinionated, and honestly a little dramatic, but I try to be polite and give her a chance. During the party, after a few drinks and people starting to tell stories, the game I had organized turned into chaos. I told everyone they could share stories as long as they were funny and lighthearted, and I even warned them not to bring up anything too embarrassing. Most people were good about it. Then Jenna stood up. She started telling a story about Mark and me from when we were kids, and at first, it was fine. But she started twisting the story in a way that made it sound like I was the problematic sibling, exaggerating things I did as a kid into almost sinister behaviors. She laughed at every sentence, expecting everyone else to laugh along. Some of my cousins looked uncomfortable, and Alex even shot her a side eye, but she didn't stop. Then she went even further. She started talking about how her parents always ignored Mark because I was supposedly the favorite, which wasn't true at all. This devolved into Jenna making up a story where I supposedly ruined Mark's birthday party by hiding all his presents as a kid. It was completely fabricated. Everyone tried to change the subject, but she kept going, making jokes at my expense and pointing out evidence that didn't exist. People were laughing politely, but it felt like they were laughing at me, not with me. By the end, I was close to tears, and I had to step outside to collect myself. Alex came after me and was furious, saying that Jenna's behavior was completely inappropriate. I texted Mark immediately after the party, explaining how uncomfortable I felt and asking if he could talk to her about it. Mark's response was complicated. He said he understood, but he also said Jenna didn't mean any harm and that I was overreacting. He told me that she's very playful and that I should learn to take a joke, which really hurt because I was embarrassed in front of my entire family. Fast forward a month. We're planning the wedding. I'm trying to figure out the guest list, and I started thinking about Jenna. I realized that I honestly do not want her at my wedding. I don't want someone there who publicly humiliated me and then had the nerve to have my brother dismiss my feelings. I brought it up with Mark again, tried to explain that it wasn't just about the party. It's about trust, respect, and how she treats people. Mark flipped. He said that if I didn't invite Jenna, he wouldn't come to the wedding. He even hinted that the rest of our family might side with him. He said I'm being petty and that weddings are about family and forgiveness, not grudges. I tried to compromise, offering to have a sit-down with Jenna beforehand. But Mark said it wouldn't change anything because she's just being herself and everyone has to accept her quirks. I told them I can't risk her causing drama at my wedding, and I think it's reasonable to want my big day to feel safe and joyful, not like a repeat of my engagement party. He accused me of being controlling and selfish, and I honestly don't know if I'm in the wrong here. I've spoken to a few close friends, and they all think I'm justified. Some of my cousins have even admitted that they were uncomfortable during Jenna's storytelling, but I know family dynamics are complicated. I don't want to cause a huge rift, but I also feel like I shouldn't have to invite someone who has treated me like that, especially after Mark didn't take my feelings seriously. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to invite my brother's fiancée to my wedding after what she did at my engagement party. AITA for refusing to let my sister live with me after she kicked her boyfriend out and insisted I owe her a place to stay. I, 29F, live in a fairly small city in a 2-bedroom apartment that I rent by myself. I make enough to live comfortably, but I'm not rich by any means. I like having my space and quiet, and over the last few years, I've built a routine and a home that I genuinely enjoy. I also live relatively close to my family, which has always been important to me, because even though I'm independent, I do like having them nearby. My sister, Maggie, 26F, has always been a bit of a wild card. She's smart and capable, but she tends to make impulsive decisions, especially when it comes to relationships and money. For context, she's currently in a rough patch. She had been living with her boyfriend for almost 3 years, and until last week, they seemed to be doing okay. They had minor arguments, sure, but nothing that seemed catastrophic. I would visit occasionally, and the situation always felt tense, but manageable. Last week, I got a call from Maggie late at night. She was crying and frantic. She told me that she and her boyfriend had gotten into a huge fight, and he had kicked her out of their apartment. She said she had nowhere to go and begged me to let her stay with me. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment with a small living room, which technically could fit a mattress on the floor for a short time, but it's not ideal. I explained this to her and told her that I really wasn't comfortable having her move in indefinitely. I reminded her that I had my own work schedule and commitments, and my apartment isn't really set up for 2 people. She got upset. She told me that I was being selfish and that family is supposed to help each other in times of crisis. She said that since I have my own place, I owe her a place to stay, at least temporarily. I tried to compromise, suggesting a hotel or Airbnb for a few nights while she figured things out, or offering to help her look for a short-term sublet or roommate situation. She didn't want to hear it. According to her, those options were expensive and impractical, and I was being unreasonable. I also offered to help her financially if she needed the deposit for a new place or help with groceries while she figured things out. I thought that was fair. I'm willing to help my family, but I draw the line at turning my small, carefully managed home into a chaotic living situation. Maggie interpreted this as me not caring about her and choosing my comfort over her well-being. Things escalated when she started sending me messages about how I should be ashamed, how I had no heart, and even implying that I had no sense of family loyalty. At first, I tried to explain again that I could help in ways that didn't involve her moving in, but she got angrier. She said that she didn't want help with money. She wanted a home. I reminded her that her situation wasn't my responsibility to solve entirely, and that she could reach out to other friends, relatives, or services in the city that specialize in helping people in temporary housing crises. Over the next few days, the tension spilled over into our extended family group chat. Maggie posted about how she couldn't believe I wouldn't let her live with me, and several cousins jumped in, some taking her side. My parents reached out to ask if I could just make an exception, and I explained the practical limitations of my apartment. I also tried to explain that I was helping in other ways, like helping her search for apartments and offering temporary financial support. My parents seemed disappointed, but ultimately understood. Some cousins are still giving me side-eye. Maggie ended up staying with a friend across town, which seems to be working for now, but she's still upset with me and hasn't spoken directly to me except for a couple terse messages. I feel bad for her, and I understand that she's in a vulnerable place, but I also feel like I set clear boundaries and try to help in ways that were reasonable. I also feel like if I had agreed to let her stay in my 1-bedroom for an unspecified amount of time, it would have caused tension and possibly resentment between us, not to mention the disruption to my work and personal life. Now Maggie has told our parents that I am cold and selfish, and she keeps bringing it up every time she sees me, saying I should feel guilty. I honestly don't feel guilty, but I do feel bad about the rift it has caused. I'm trying to balance helping my family with protecting my own mental health and living situation. So, Reddit. AITA for refusing to let my sister live with me after her breakup. Character count. 6,197 if you want. I can also write a second version that hits closer to 7,000 characters with more tension, drama, and minor subplots like extended family reactions and workplace stress. It would read even more like the top viral AITA posts. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to help my sister with her wedding after she insulted my fiancé? So, I, 27F, am engaged to my fiancé, Tom, 29M. We've been together for 6 years, living together for 4. Tom is an amazing person, funny, kind, and incredibly supportive. I truly feel lucky to have him. My sister, Sarah, 30F, has always had a bit of a competitive streak, and while we were close growing up, as adults it's complicated. A few months ago, Sarah got engaged to her boyfriend, Jake, 32M, who is a decent guy but very controlling. From the start, she has been obsessed with making sure her wedding is perfect, which she defines as impressing everyone and getting a ton of Instagram-worthy pictures. She has always been the type to micromanage everything and everyone around her. She asked me to be her maid of honor. I hesitated because I knew it would be a huge commitment, but I agreed because I thought, hey, it's my sister and I love her. Fast forward a few weeks into planning, and she starts criticizing almost everything about my life and Tom. It started small comments like, "Are you really going to wear that dress to our brunch?" Or, "Tom really needs to work out more before the wedding pictures." I brushed them off, thinking she was just stressed about the wedding. Then, one day it escalated. We were at a bridal shop, picking out bridesmaid dresses. I brought Tom along because he wanted to give me his opinion. He's supportive like that. Sarah immediately gave him a look and said, "Oh great, we can't have that guy here. He'll probably ruin the aesthetic of the photo." I was shocked. I laughed nervously and tried to brush it off, but Tom looked uncomfortable. A week later, she sent me a group chat message of the bridal party, saying, "Just a reminder, please don't bring anyone who will make our pictures look bad. Especially Tom." At this point, I was furious. Not only was she insulting my fiancé, but she was publicly humiliating him to our friends. I called her and told her that was not okay. She just shrugged and said, "I'm just trying to make the wedding perfect. Don't be so sensitive." Then came the planning meeting with the caterer. I brought Tom along again because he wanted a taste test. She looked at him and said, "You might want to sit this one out. Don't touch the cake until I say so." I lost it. I told her that Tom was my partner, not a child, and that if she couldn't treat him with respect, he wouldn't be involved. She got defensive and claimed I was overreacting. I tried to compromise, offering to meet her with the bridal party alone, or helping with decorations, or even just giving input over text. But every time I suggested something reasonable, she came back with more insults disguised as jokes or criticism. It became emotionally draining. 2 weeks ago, I finally said no. I told her I couldn't be her maid of honor anymore, that I wouldn't attend any wedding events if she continued to disrespect Tom, and that I would only attend the wedding itself if she could promise to behave. She accused me of ruining her wedding and choosing my fiancé over my family. Our parents tried to mediate. They told me that I should try to smooth things over, but I refused to go back on my boundary. They said I was being dramatic, that I was letting a fiancé control my life, and that Sarah would never forgive me. I've heard from some mutual friends that Sarah is spreading rumors that I'm being selfish, and some family members have subtly implied that I'm overreacting. I've been feeling guilty, but at the same time, I know I cannot allow someone to insult the person I'm going to marry repeatedly and publicly. I also worry that skipping the wedding events, bachelorette, rehearsal dinner, etc., will make me seem like the bad person in everyone's eyes, but I just cannot do it. I've tried to talk to her multiple times about her behavior, but she either brushes it off or gets defensive. So Reddit. AITA for refusing to help my sister with her wedding and skipping her pre-wedding events because she insulted my fiancé repeatedly. If you want, I can also create another one in a completely different scenario that has a similar long-form, dramatic style. That one could hit emotional tension from a friendship or roommate conflict, which tends to do really well on Reddit. Do you want me to do that next? AITA for refusing to let my sister's husband move in after their divorce. I, 27F, have been living in a two-bedroom apartment in the city for about 3 years now. It's small but cozy, and honestly, it's been my little sanctuary away from family drama. My sister, Jenna, 29F, has always had a habit of dragging her life problems into mine, so I've worked hard to set boundaries. Jenna and her husband, Mark, 31M, have been married for 6 years, but the past year has been a disaster. I won't go into all the nitty-gritty, but there's been emotional abuse, a lot of yelling, and some borderline controlling behavior from Mark. I've known about it, because Jenna vents to me almost daily. I've tried to stay neutral but supportive. 2 weeks ago, Jenna called me in a panic. She said that she and Mark had decided to separate, and he had nowhere to go. According to her, he asked if he could temporarily stay at my place until he figured things out. I was shocked because, honestly, Mark and I have never gotten along. He's rude, dismissive of my boundaries, and I genuinely don't feel comfortable around him. I told Jenna that I couldn't house him, and that maybe he should consider staying with his brother or finding a short-term rental. Jenna immediately got upset. She accused me of choosing sides and being unsupportive. She said she thought I would help him because I live alone and have space to spare. I reminded her that my apartment has 2 bedrooms and I sleep in one of them, and I don't feel safe having someone in my personal space who has been a source of tension for her, and, by extension, for me. She countered by saying that he isn't a threat, and he's just going through a rough patch. The next few days were tense. Jenna kept calling and texting me, asking me to reconsider. She said Mark had no family nearby, and that she didn't want him to end up homeless. I explained that I understood her concern, but I wasn't comfortable being the person responsible for housing someone I don't trust. She accused me of being heartless and selfish. Then things escalated. Mark somehow found out that I had refused, and he started sending me messages. At first, they were passive-aggressive, asking if I had really thought this through, and maybe I could make an exception. I ignored them. Then he began texting longer rants about how unhelpful and cold I was being, and that I was destroying what little family loyalty we have left. Jenna saw these messages and accused me of harassing him by not letting him stay with me. She said I was making his life worse, and that if I really cared about family, I would find a way to help. I explained that refusing someone lodging is not harassment, but she wouldn't listen. She started posting on social media about how her sister was turning her back on family in their time of need, which was humiliating because several mutual friends commented and shared opinions. Meanwhile, Mark apparently found a couch at a friend's place. Jenna texted me to say that he was staying for now, but she still sounded bitter, implying I should have been more accommodating. I told her I hoped things would settle down, but I wasn't going to let her guilt me into compromising my safety or comfort. The tension hasn't eased. Family members have started asking me why I didn't help, and my parents are subtly hinting that I should reconsider for the sake of family unity. I've tried to explain that my decision wasn't personal. It was about boundaries and safety, but they keep framing it as me being selfish or cold. I do feel guilty sometimes because I know Mark really didn't have anywhere to go immediately, but at the same time, he has other options like temporary rentals, friends, or even his own family. I also can't shake the feeling that saying yes just because their family would be a huge mistake. So, Reddit. AITA for refusing to let my sister's husband move in after their divorce. I feel like I'm being reasonable, but the backlash from my family and friends has made me second-guess myself. AITA for refusing to let my sister stay at my house after she caused a huge scene at my wedding last year. This is going to be a long one, so bear with me. My 28F sister, Lindsay, 30F, and I have always had a rocky relationship. We grew up together, but she's always been manipulative and extremely self-centered. Our parents always spoiled her, and I was usually left to pick up the pieces of her drama. I've tried to maintain a civil relationship as adults, but I've learned to protect my boundaries. Fast forward to last year, I got married. My wedding was relatively small, around 80 people, and I spent over a year planning it meticulously. I made sure to include both of our families and close friends, but Lindsay had always been difficult to deal with when it came to attention. I tried to keep things smooth for her, giving her a nice bridesmaid dress, letting her pick her hair and makeup style, and even giving her a small say in some decorations because I wanted to avoid unnecessary drama. Despite my efforts, Lindsay was difficult from the beginning. She complained about the dress, claimed she didn't like the color scheme I chose, and accused me of trying to outshine her. I brushed it off, assuming she would settle down once the wedding day actually arrived. The problem started the day of the wedding. Everything was going fine until dinner. Lindsay had a few glasses of wine, which I honestly think triggered her because she suddenly got very aggressive and loud. She started criticizing the food, the music, and even my choice of flowers. When I tried to calm her down, she snapped and yelled that my husband was clearly just a backup plan because no one else would marry me in front of our families. My parents tried to intervene, but she turned it on them too, calling them biased and blind. Then things escalated. She stormed out during the cake cutting, and when my husband and I tried to talk to her, she threw a wine glass on the floor and left, shouting about how I ruined her life and embarrassed her. Security had to be called to ensure she didn't come back inside. The rest of the evening was tense, but thankfully everyone else was supportive and helped calm me down. After the wedding, I tried to reach out to her calmly, thinking maybe she just had a bad night or was stressed. I sent her a message explaining that her behavior was unacceptable and that I was hurt by what she said. She responded with an entire essay blaming me, claiming I trapped her into being part of a wedding that was never about her, and that I was selfish for expecting her to act appropriately. I blocked her on social media because her messages were abusive. Since then, we've barely spoken. Our parents tried to mediate, but Lindsay refuses to apologize. She claimed I'm overreacting and that she didn't do anything wrong. I've mostly kept my distance because I don't trust her around my husband or my friends. Now, fast forward to this month. Lindsay called my mom and told her she had no place to stay for a week because her apartment had an emergency plumbing issue. She asked my mom if she could stay at my house. My mom, knowing our history, asked me first. My initial reaction was an immediate no. I told my mom that after everything that happened last year, I do not feel comfortable having Lindsay in my house. She argued that it's family, and that I should forgive and forget since it's just for a few days. I explained that forgiving doesn't mean I have to invite her into my personal space, and that a week is a long time for someone who has previously caused significant drama and even endangered my safety, throwing a glass at the wedding. Mom tried to negotiate and suggested she could stay just a night, but I was firm. I told her no. I even offered to help her find a hotel or Airbnb nearby. But she called me selfish and manipulative, saying I was punishing her for one mistake, and that I clearly hate her. I've stayed firm, and now Lindsay is making rounds telling friends and other family members that I'm being unreasonable, cold, and cruel. My husband supports me and says he agrees it's not safe or sane to have her stay, but I can already feel the backlash building. I do understand some people might think I'm being harsh or holding a grudge, but considering the history and the level of disrespect she showed at my wedding, I don't think I should have to open my home to her. I don't want to escalate further, but I also don't want to compromise my peace and safety. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister stay at my house. AITA for not letting my younger sister's boyfriend stay in our house, even though it caused a huge fight. I, 26F, have always been close to my younger sister, Lily, 22F, but we've had our fair share of conflicts over the years. Our parents passed away a few years ago, and I've been the one managing the house we inherited from them. It's a decent 3-bedroom home in a quiet neighborhood, and I live here alone, working a full-time remote job. Lily comes over fairly often, but she's never lived with me permanently. Lily started dating a guy, Matt, 24M, about a year ago. At first, everything seemed normal. I met him a couple of times, and he was polite enough, though I didn't get the warmest impression of him. Over time, though, I started noticing some red flags. He was very controlling with Lily and seemed to want her to drop her friends, and he often made passive-aggressive comments that seemed designed to make her feel guilty about minor things. Lily, being the loving and kind person she is, brushed it off and insisted that I didn't understand their relationship. Fast forward a few months ago, Lily told me she was thinking about taking a break from her apartment and staying at my place for a while. She said Matt had been difficult about her needing personal space, and she wanted to stay with me for a month or two until things cooled down. I agreed, thinking it would be temporary, and I trusted Lily to respect the house rules. That's where things started to unravel. The first week was fine. Lily was respectful and tidy. But then she started inviting Matt over without telling me. I had always made it clear that I wasn't comfortable with overnight guests because I work irregular hours and value my privacy. The first time Matt stayed over, I didn't say anything directly, hoping it was a one-time thing. But after a couple more nights, it became clear he was treating my home like his own. He ate my groceries without asking, rearranged furniture, and constantly criticized the way I kept the house. I tried to address it politely, but every time I mentioned boundaries, Lily would get defensive and say, "He's my boyfriend. Can't he stay over just once in a while?" It reached a breaking point last weekend. I had been working a major project for weeks, and I had a presentation that Monday. I came home Friday evening after a long day, expecting some quiet, and walked in to find Matt and Lily watching TV in the living room. There were dirty dishes all over the kitchen, and I discovered that they had rearranged my home office for some reason. I calmly told them that this was my house, and I needed them to respect my space, and that Matt could not stay overnight anymore. Lily immediately went on the defensive, yelling at me that I was being unreasonable and selfish, and Matt sided with her, accusing me of being controlling. The argument escalated quickly. Lily accused me of trying to police her life and said that I was treating her like a child. I explained that I wasn't trying to control her, but that this was my home, and she had agreed to my rules when she came over. She eventually stormed out, saying she would never come to my house again and that our relationship was over if I kept treating her like this. Matt also left, making a point to give me a dirty look as he walked out. Since then, our family group chat has been flooded with messages from extended relatives taking Lily's side. They argue that I should have been more accommodating, that I was being harsh and cold, and that I should have let her and her boyfriend stay. I've tried to explain that it's not about being mean, it's about respecting boundaries, but nobody seems to understand. My friends have been more supportive, saying that I was entirely justified in setting rules in my own home. I feel conflicted. On one hand, I know I'm right that no one should be allowed to overstep boundaries in my own house. On the other hand, I hate that my relationship with Lily is strained and that my extended family sees me as the villain. I've considered apologizing to try and patch things up, but I don't want to compromise my principles or let Matt continue to disrespect my home. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend stay in my house, even though it caused a huge fight and potentially ruined our relationship. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Emma, 25F. Growing up, we were close but constantly fought over the tiniest things: clothes, boys, parental attention, you name it. In our adult years, the tension has lessened, but there's still an underlying friction that flares up occasionally. Recently, this tension hit a breaking point regarding her upcoming wedding. About 2 years ago, Emma started dating a man named Derek, 30M. From the beginning, I had a bad feeling about him, though I tried to suppress it to avoid unnecessary conflict. Derek is charming and fun on the surface, but he's extremely controlling and manipulative. He often makes passive-aggressive comments, subtly puts people down in social situations, and has an inability to take accountability for anything. Emma, for the most part, brushes it off, and her friends tend to see it as harmless banter or quirks, but I noticed the way she would apologize for his behavior constantly, almost as if she felt she needed to defend him. The first major incident happened at a family gathering last year. Derek loudly criticized my career choices in front of our parents, saying I was too idealistic to ever succeed in a very belittling tone. Emma laughed it off nervously, and our parents didn't intervene, probably assuming it was just teasing. I tried to stay calm, but I remember storming out later that night and refusing to speak to him for a week. Emma said I overreacted and that he was just joking, But this wasn't an isolated incident. It kept happening at every family event, dinner, or casual hangout. Fast forward to this year. Emma got engaged, and the wedding planning began. Derek immediately took over the process, insisting on every detail, from the venue to the invitations to the seating arrangements. He pushed Emma to cut off certain family members from the guest list, including some of our relatives who he said were too negative or dramatic. I was included on the list, but I could tell he was annoyed by it. During a meeting with the wedding planner, he openly criticized my outfit choice for the bridal shower, saying it was too flashy and that I should tone it down so as not to upstage Emma. I was furious, but Emma just apologized on his behalf and told me not to take it personally. Then came the issue that finally made me draw a line. A few weeks ago, Emma asked me to help with the rehearsal dinner guest list. I sent her my suggestions, which included close friends, family, and a few childhood friends who were important to me. Derek went through the list and outright vetoed multiple names, including some of my best friends, without even consulting me. When I confronted Emma about it, she said, "He's just trying to make the wedding perfect. You should be happy he's so involved." I told her that I wasn't comfortable being around someone who treats me and my friends that way. Emma got defensive and accused me of trying to ruin her big day because I wasn't bending to Derek's whims. The last straw happened last weekend. Emma had her bachelorette party, and I was invited. I got there early to help set up and make sure everything was ready. Derek showed up and immediately started criticizing how I was arranging things, saying my aesthetic sense was off and implying I didn't know how to decorate properly. I snapped at him in front of everyone, saying, "You have no right to talk to me like that. I didn't do anything to you." He laughed and told me I was too sensitive. Emma didn't defend me and instead told me to calm down. The night ended awkwardly, with me storming out and Emma texting me later saying, "I can't believe you made this about you again." After that, I decided I couldn't be part of the wedding. I texted Emma a long message explaining that I couldn't be around someone who disrespects me so openly, and that I felt it was emotionally unhealthy for me to participate in the event. I offered to send a gift and a heartfelt letter to her on the day of the wedding, but I made it clear that I couldn't physically attend. Emma responded by crying on the phone and accusing me of being selfish, saying that weddings are about the bride and that I was making everything about myself. Derek chimed in via text the next day, calling me dramatic and immature for refusing to attend, and he implied that I was trying to ruin Emma's happiness. Since then, our family has taken sides. My parents are upset that I'm not attending, but say they understand my perspective. Emma's friends are split. Some think I'm justified, others think I'm being stubborn and should just suck it up for her wedding. I'm feeling extremely guilty because I do love my sister and want her to be happy, but I also feel like letting Derek walk all over me and being treated like this in front of everyone is something I can't tolerate. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior? I keep going over the events in my head and wonder if I'm being too rigid, but every time I imagine being there, I feel anxious and humiliated just thinking about how he treats me. Character count, 6,456 if you want. I can also create a second version that pushes even more drama and family fallout, which usually makes these stories go viral on Reddit. Do you want me to do that? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.